Everyone. So glad to see you all today. Thank you for joining us on this cold April day. We are really looking forward to this important conversation today around supporting new arrival migrant students in Chicago Public Schools. So thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I'm going to have my colleague Jessica share our intro deck, and I will share a little bit about the To and Through project, share a couple of announcements, and then give a little bit of context for the event. And then I am just so excited to get to welcome some amazing folks from schools and from the Latino Policy Forum to join us in this discussion today. So as I mentioned, we're here for the supporting new arrivals, newly arrived migrant students in Chicago Public Schools. We're joined by the Latino Policy Forum, Brighton Park Elementary School, and North Grand High School, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. For those of you who are new to the To and Through project, our work is really around creating schools that should be places where students have access to equitable learning experiences and pathways. And we work specifically from the middle grades through college graduation. We're a subset of the University of Chicago, and we are really striving to create equitable educational outcomes for Chicago public school students. And today, I think we're really zooming in on equity from the lens of new arriving students, migrant families, immigrant families, refugee and asylum seeker families, and how can we make our schools a more equitable place and our city a more equitable place for students and families. So just a couple of quick notes about upcoming events. Today's a really great and important webinar. We also have two other events coming up this spring. One is from our middle grades network around a spotlight on student voice, how to center young people as experts in their own experiences. And that will be held on May 2nd. And my colleague Dom will put a link to our events page in the chat for you to access. We also have an in-person event coming up, what's going to become our annual Kegs and Cases event. We did another one last year, so this is our second iteration on May 30th. Come join us for drinks and the release of our newest case, which will focus on how CPS is supporting alumni students after they graduate from CPS in their post-secondary journeys. So hope to see you for that in-person event. I want to transition to just introduce, or sorry, one other great announcement. Our colleague Jessica Vargas is leading an amazing work to elevate the voices of students in CPS through alumni stories. And so we are currently recruiting for new student stories that we are looking particularly for students from the west side of Chicago who went to school on the west side of Chicago. So if you work with CPS alumni or CPS students who have graduated between the years 2013 and 2023, there's a bit.ly that you can type in and send to them, or feel free to scan that QR code and send that code their way. We would love to just continue elevating student voice through our student story series. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So today's conversation is one that just feels really important, essential, and timely right now. We know these are some of the headlines that I've pulled around conversations around migrant arrivals in Chicago, in the city, in schools that I know I've been reading a lot about, and a lot of folks have just named. The educators that we work alongside have talked about both challenges here and strengths and opportunities, and we wanted to sort of center this conversation to hear what is some of the context and what are some of the promising practices that schools are leveraging to support migrant families and students. And so just a couple of data points that we're kind of thinking about as we engage in this conversation from some of these articles from Chalkbeat and WBEZ. We know that Chicago has welcomed almost 38,000 newly arrived migrants over the last year, many of whom are asylum seekers and refugees. And according to CPS, the data is a little obscure sometimes, but at least more than 5,700 newly arrived migrant students have enrolled in Chicago public schools since the beginning of this school year. And we know that students and families are navigating challenges with access to housing, access to work, navigating different documentation and legal statuses, language barriers, and just so many other issues. And that those challenges are really nuanced and unique based on the various situation and context that each student and family is bringing. And we also want to acknowledge that the To and Through project, we're not full experts on this topic or here to provide just one singular answer. but rather to bring together amazing humans who do this work to share their perspectives and expertise, so that we can get some answers, but not the answers. So we're bringing Latino Policy Forum together, who does some really important work around the policy and research side of this topic, and they're going to bring some context and background, and then some amazing educators who are so grateful for taking time out of their school day from Brighton Park Elementary and North Grand High School, who are doing really fantastic work to highlight just some of the thousands of supports that are happening across the city and state to support students and families. So just to note, Jessica, on the next slide for our agenda, I've already done our welcome and introduction. We're going to start with hearing from the Latino Policy Forum to hear some context, and then we'll hear from our two schools around promising practices and challenges and how they're navigating that. The format of this webinar is that there'll be also some time for Q&A at the end. So you should see a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Throughout the whole conversation today, feel free to ask questions, and we will hopefully get to as many of those at the end as possible. And then we also have a really exciting post-discussion space that we really have heard people want and need to help process the conversation and the webinar. So we hope that you're able to stick around from 3 to 3:30 to engage in a different Zoom link where we'll be able to come off camera and engage in conversation around what we've heard today. So let's get started with our conversation. Before we hear from some amazing educators at the school level, we wanted to kind of start with providing some broad context about the current migrant experience at the city level and the state level, and what those implications mean for working with young people, students, and families in Chicago. So I pulled the brilliant and amazing mission work that Latino Policy Forum does. Their work is around advocacy and analysis, and the forum builds a foundation for equity, justice, and economic prosperity for the Latino community. By catalyzing policy change, the forum works to improve educational outcomes, advocate for affordable housing, promote just immigration policies, and strengthen community leadership. They're involved at the state and the city level towards advancing equity for Latino community, and they do incredibly important work that I'm excited to highlight today. So I'm excited to introduce Nina Cedeño, the Immigration and Policy Analyst at the Latino Policy Forum, and Rebecca Vanderlack Navarro, the Vice President of Education Policy and Research at Latino Policy Forum. So I'll let them take it away.
Thank you, Alex. Share my screen here. All right, folks can see that, right? All right. As Alex said, I am Nina Cedeño, and I will be kicking off the presentation from the Latino Policy Forum. As Alex said, we, through advocacy and analysis, we build a foundation for equity, justice, and prosperity for the Latino community. And we do that through our 4 core issue areas, which is education, housing, immigration, and multicultural leadership. A little bit about the education work that I do. So our theory of change and just our general fundamental statement is that all individuals living in the US, regardless of their country of origin, are recognized as valuable and contributing members of society and have equal access to equity and prosperity. So the work that I do, I try to categorize that in 3 buckets, although it's a lot of the work that I do falls outside of these buckets, but primarily 1, to advocate for inclusive and equitable investments and policies for the immigrant community in Illinois at all levels, to promote awareness on policy issues that impact immigrants to partners like you all, providers and policymakers, and to empower the Latino and immigrant community to be civically engaged in policy work and in advocacy work. Okay, I wanted to spend, before we dive into, again, some of the context that we're seeing, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the various definitions and terms that we hear in the media, and things that are being written about this new group of arrivals that we're seeing, and what is the difference between a refugee, asylum seeker, and a migrant. And I think it's really important to emphasize these different terms, right, because they imply very different pathways and supports, right, based on how you came and for what reasons you came, right? And I think fundamentally, these 3 words are the same, right? But again, based on how and why you came, really determines what kind of access and support you can get here in this country. And I think this is important because it allows us to challenge very negative discourse and anti-immigrant sentiment that we see out there, discourses of criminality, illegality. So this is why I'm deciding to talk about it today. And I think one could argue that these definitions don't go far enough, right, to address the wide scope of humanitarian concerns that these populations face. So it's a much larger discussion, but we'll go through it briefly. So again, who is a refugee? A refugee is a person who has fled their country of origin and is unable or unwilling to return because of a well-founded fear of persecution due to their race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular group, or political opinion. So refugees are internationally protected under the Refugee Convention, and there are estimated 35 million refugees worldwide. However, there's a lot of ongoing conflict throughout the world, so we expect to see that number rise. What's very particular to refugees is that one must apply for refugee status from abroad, and they more often than not cannot return to their home country due to risk of persecution. And another clear thing here, is there a pathway to citizenship for refugees here in the US? And the short answer is yes. And I include some links in case you want to read more up on that. An asylum seeker. So by definition, asylum seeker is also someone who is seeking international protection from dangers in his or her home country. So they meet the legal definition of a refugee. However, the main difference is that you must apply for protection from within the destination country versus abroad or from their home country, meaning they must arrive at or cross a border to prove their case, right? And so asylum seekers are legally protected under the 1967 Protocol and U.S. immigration law, also known as Title VIII. And is there a pathway to citizenship for asylum seekers? Again, the short answer is yes. Migrant, and this is a word that I think you hear more often, right, being thrown around, and that is a person who moves away from their place of usual residence across an international border, either temporarily or permanently. And so there's an estimated 280 million global migrants as of 2020, according to the Migration Policy Institute. And is there a pathway to citizenship for migrants? The short answer, it depends, right? It depends on how you came, whether you have someone who can sponsor you, and whatnot. So again, I think these two terms you hear more often in the media. So before I move on, I just want to preface that I am using the term new arrivals. Again, these new arrivals are asylum seekers, but I just want to differentiate to really distinguish the folks that we're talking about, which are those who have arrived from the southern border as of August 2022. So just really want to distinguish the group that I'm talking about here today. Okay, as Alex mentioned earlier, 38,000 plus asylum seekers and new arrivals have arrived from the southern border via buses and airplanes since August of 2022. So this is as of yesterday, and that number continues to climb. The total number of arrivals since August of 2022 is 865. The total shelter consensus, meaning those who are in a city-run shelter, is 9,899. And as you can see to the right, there are approximately 23 shelters throughout the city of Chicago, across the city. And that number, again, fluctuates from week to week based on the number of arrivals that the city is seeing. The total number of individuals resettled is 15,763, meaning so these could be folks that either resettled on their own because they were able to find a family member to live with, they were able to secure an apartment on their own, they qualified for a state rental assistance to be able to apply for an apartment. So again, that number encompasses a lot of different things. And one thing I want to really emphasize is that the new arrivals that we're seeing, again, contrary to what I think hear a lot in the media, is that the new arrivals are not just coming from Central American countries, right, like Venezuela, Colombia, Guatemala. Although a majority of them are from these countries, we're also seeing asylum seekers from Afghanistan. We continue to see those. Haiti, Ethiopia, Argentina, and even some Asian countries as well. So again, this is not just a Latino issue. We're not just talking about folks from Central America, but from a wide variety of countries. And I just want to say here before moving on to sort of the state context is that cities are not traditionally structured to resettle a large number of asylum seekers, not in the same way as refugees. If you recall, refugees, there's a very specific program, right, that refugees go through, and the federal government equips cities and localities to resettle refugees, not asylum seekers, right? And certainly not to this degree in this frequency, right? So I just, it's been a huge lift, and I think everyone is, learning as we go. And for more information on updated numbers, you can visit the City of Chicago dashboard. Okay, quickly. So the state has invested significantly in responding to the crisis, from standing up hotels when the first buses arrived to providing support and case management services at those hotels and now city shelters through community-based organizations and trusted partners. So again, migrants living in city-run shelters receive wraparound case management in partnership with the Illinois Department of Human Services and various CBOs and welcoming centers. Again, this list of organizations is not the whole list, but I just wanted to give folks a snapshot of who's handling and managing what, right? So from food, resettlement, legal services, to school enrollment. So part of what we're talking about today. And then again, I don't want to move on without really recognizing the effort and time that mutual aid groups have been providing to those who are not in shelters, right? Because not everyone is able to get in a shelter, right? And so mutual aid groups and volunteers have been really stepping up to fill in the gaps. Just really quickly, the Welcome to Illinois Coalition, for those of you who are not familiar, it was convened by the Latino Policy Forum. It's a virtual space where people can come and just learn about the different efforts and the different, different updates that organizations are providing, different services they're providing. Again, it's just to provide a space for these different groups to coordinate efforts and how to best support those seeking asylum. And so anyone can attend these meetings. We regularly invite the city and the state to come. So if you're interested, I can put my email in the chat. We meet on a bi-weekly basis over Zoom. Okay, ongoing challenges. Again, this list is not exhaustive, but these are some of the challenges and needs that we're hearing from, again, our partners in the Welcome to Illinois Coalition. Anything from legal services to housing being a big one, right? Just the capacity. There's just simply not enough shelter beds, right, to accommodate the number of people that we're seeing. And so, for example, the city has had to institute a limited stay policy where folks can only stay in a shelter for 60 days, right, which the forum has been advocating for is not the best policy for these people. So just really, while we're coordinating and cooperating with the city, we're also, there's also room for some accountability in how we're treating these folks. All right, this is a long list, but there are opportunities for advocacy, right, at the federal, state, local level, and philanthropy. Immigration is first and foremost a federal issue. However, again, this issue is not going away anytime soon. And so how can we best prepare our state and our local communities to welcome these individuals? Everything, again, from providing rental assistance to advocating to the federal government to expand and expedite work permits so that people can work and sustain their families. And then just increased transparency, right, from our local government. And so a lot of these things are in the works, but again, there's always room for improvement. I believe that's all for my section. And then
Thanks
I will pass it on to Rebecca.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Nina. That was great broader context. And in the next slide, it's just a very brief overview of some of the education specific work that we do. We work in early childhood. We work in Latino and immigrant family engagement. We work to increase the number of Latino and bilingual educators at the forum. We're very big on supporting English learners and bilingual education. And most recently, we're starting to get in the work of increasing the number of Latinos and English learners achieving a college degree. And so on the next slide, I wanted to just review very briefly some legislation that we're supporting that is around this topic that I think will interest you all. Early childhood, you might say, hey, we're a K through 12 group, but we all know if our kiddos birth to age 5 don't come in ready to learn, it sets them behind for kindergarten and beyond. And folks might know that there's been an announcement to have a new early childhood department in Illinois to oversee birth to age 5, so even preschool. And we worked with the governor's office, and this is something that's being proposed right now. But I'm happy to say that it includes proposed legislative protections for undocumented children in the authorizing language for the new department. But we know there's more work that still needs to be done, and a huge area is around childcare. And again, I know you're a K-12 audience, but the parents of these kids are going to have to work. They're going to need childcare. So I wanted to cover it just for a little bit about some revisions that need to be made. The Department of Children and Family Services, I think, has tried to make some flexibility around the requirement for a birth certificate to enroll in childcare. And so they're allowing some submission of other reliable proof, but it has to be determined by the Illinois State Police. They've also aligned with McKinney-Vento homelessness legislation, where homeless children and youth are given a period of up to 90 calendar days from the first day of attendance in order to produce documentation. But we know for newcomer families, this does not go far enough. And we also know how precarious this is for families who might have left their home country without identification, lost it along the way, could have had it stolen from them. So we're looking for more flexibility. This doesn't fix everything, but we're looking that DCFS could accept a consular ID or a matricula ID, perhaps a non-United States passport, a Chicago City Key ID, which works for Chicago, not everywhere else, or perhaps a travel authorization document. In the next slide, and again, we're waiting for that this session to see if those things will pass. In the next slide here, this is something I think will interest all of you. It's legislation that we're supporting that's being considered right now. And it would establish the Supporting Newcomer Students program at the State Board of Education. It's $188 million that they're requesting. We know this is a really tough budget year. It provides districts experiencing unpredictable enrollment due to newcomer students with funding to stabilize supports and programming. And let's keep in mind, I know that English learners are considered in evidence-based programming, but often these kiddos, we know they're coming in last minute and we're seeing enrollments jump, and the formula didn't account for that kind of enrollment. So this is really to supplement those spikes. And it's very flexible usage. You can stabilize class sizes. You can use it to lessen the burden on existing staff by hiring more bilingual staff, including teachers, parapros, social workers, psychologists, or administrators. It can be used to purchase materials in the home language, before or after school programs like tutoring or extracurricular, providing professional development to staff, helping teachers get the ESL bilingual endorsement. You could even use it for a grow your own program. If you've got parapros, that could benefit. And it can be used for families for interpretation or translation. So we are really pushing for that. Last slide, and then I know we're going to get into the practitioners who I'm excited to hear about. But some resources that we've developed in partnership with the Illinois Association of School Boards. And Alex, the amazing Alex, is going to send this out to everyone. I think it's really going to reinforce what the practitioners talk about today. But these were publications where we talk about terminology, ways to overcome socio-emotional stressors, overcoming academic barriers, accelerated survival, ESL, and acculturation classes. And this was really for leaders of schools who, this might be a new population, not sure where to start. And we also provided district exemplars where we looked at districts that had a population that largely spoke one language versus another district that might have a lot of different languages, and looked at instructional designs, intake processes, wraparound support, and teacher preparation. So I'm going to pass it back to Alex, but really been an honor for the forum to be here and kind of set some context for the important work on the ground that everyone's doing.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Nina, and just really, really appreciate that perspective and context that you all were able to share. I know I learned a lot. I was taking some notes for things that I want to advocate for in my own personal time. So thank you so much for framing that up. We're going to transition. We'll again have some time for Q&A with all the folks on the call, but let's transition to hear from some of our amazing educator practitioners who are working directly with new arrival students every day in their buildings. So we're going to start with hearing from Brighton Park Elementary School, which is a CPS neighborhood elementary school on the southwest side of Chicago, and also an alum of the Middle Grades Network cohort that the Through and Through Project works closely alongside. They were part of our first cohort of schools. Brighton Park was recently featured in a Chalkbeat article in October, highlighting some of the really strong trauma-informed and socio-emotional support that they're offering for newcomer students. So really excited to have Cecilia Mendoza, the assistant principal of Brighton Park, and Jennifer Morehouse, bilingual math teacher and program lead at Brighton Park, be able to share a little bit about their school community and their practices. So passing it over to you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Cecilia Mendoza. I'm assistant principal here at Brighton Park. And just to give you just some information of Brighton Park, we are a small school in the Brighton Park neighborhood. We have about 288 students. And of those 288 students, we have 168 English learners. We have 50 diverse learners, so students who have IEPs. And of that, we have 34 students who are like English learners, but also have an IEP. And between last year and this year, we have gotten 34 newcomer students. That seems like a low number, especially with students, with schools that have, we've been hearing that have 100 students, right? Schools that are really close to shelters. But considering our demographics with 288, 34 students was a lot for us. But we are very lucky to be a part of the Sustainable Community Schools initiative, and we have our partnership with BPNC, the Brighton Park Neighborhood Council. And through the Sustainable Community Schools, we're able to offer full-time after-school programming with academics and enrichments for all of our students. We also have a full-time case manager, and she really works close with families that need support. She helps with families look for housing, with food, different benefits that they can use if they need furniture. She's just a really great go-to person that our families rely on. We also have a parent coordinator who helps parents enroll in different classes so they can learn more. And then hopefully one day, take that into becoming different businesses like computering or crocheting, things like that, arts, cooking classes, and nutrition classes. Another great benefit of being a part of the Sustainable Community Schools is we have an on-site mental health therapist, and she's here every day. And we also have our full-time counselor and social worker. So we have a really big push on SEL. And we have our restorative justice coordinator. So we are part of the Sustainable Community Schools, and we're very lucky to be part of them. The next slide. Some of the challenges that we have faced, last year as a school, we started to receive some newcomers, and one student he had the bravery to teach us about his journey, and that opened us up as a school to dig a little bit deeper to try to find the support that all of our students needed, and for us to really understand their experiences and ways that we can support. This student demonstrated trauma in ways that we had not previously experienced. So this led us to revamp how we welcome students and families, and how we could integrate them into our school community. But some of the challenges were understanding student and families' experience on how they get here. Everyone has gotten here in different ways through the Darien Gap. Some of them fly here, some of them have walked the entire way. So just getting to know their experience has been a challenge for some students, but eye-opening for all of us as a school. Many students, not all, have demonstrated trauma in different ways. So there has had to be a lot of learning for us as a school to understand how trauma unfolds. One of the biggest challenges is not knowing what the students know, both academically and with different executive functioning skills. There's some things that we just, as a school, we're so into just doing things every day that we don't know. It's like okay, well, do they know how to use a computer academically? They're skills that we think, well, you know how to use a computer. You play on the computer all the time. But no, sometimes students don't know how to use the computer to access Google Classroom or to open up a document, to use copy and paste, functions like that. So how do we do school here at Brighton Park and in the United States is something that we have to really teach. And then we have had many students with interrupted instruction, right? Who haven't had instruction in the past years and now they're in middle school and we have to bridge those gaps. So those have been some of our challenges. And Ms. Marhouse has been a great support in welcoming students and families. So she will be up next.
Oh, thank you so much. So I am the ELPT at our school and I love this role. So basically, yeah, so what I do is I welcome our students and I give them a tour. And at first I was just walking our students, giving them a welcome package. But then we had our one student that was exhibiting that trauma that we had never seen, but that trauma that we are trained in. And it just changed everything. And that's when I started to realize I need to dig deeper. I need to really connect with the families. I need to not just welcome them and like give a tour. I need to like know more about them. And so I wanted to know their history. I wanted to know like how many schools had they come before here and their journey. And so that's when I learned all the different ways they've gone here. And some of the kids haven't had trauma and some of the kids have had tremendous trauma. And then the parents let me know like their needs. And that's when I started to learn down to like, sometimes parents didn't even have underwear. And so you really just take things for granted. And so I would learn that like, I had to teach our staff and our teachers that before our kids can learn, that they have to feel safe. And so we had to make sure their basic needs were met. So I would get our existing friends that were already here, like a talking circle, and like have them introduce them with how long they've been here with me and let them know their experience and how long it took them to adapt so that each newcomer that arrived would know that like they too would get accustomed and get used to being here. But then once the students and family were checked in and like arrived in our school, that I would check in with them and see if they needed clothes, what essentials they needed. I would also see what resources they needed. So I would connect them with the person at our school that helps them with furniture. I would also help them with the person in CPS that helps them with Medicaid. I really educated myself on the CPS website that with all the resources that we offered to help them with those resources immediately. And I just any resource I could find in the city, I would kind of connect them so that they wouldn't have to wait. I just really started educating myself with any resource that I could help them along with anybody at our school. And then the next slide, please. And so in addition to that, I also do the Strong program, and the Strong program is an awesome program for newcomers where it helps them with their feelings, navigating to help them with their story, sharing their story at their pace, helping them because like Ms. Mendoza said, like a lot of them, yeah, they may know how to play the games on the computer, but they do not know how to cut and paste, and they don't know how to get on Google Classroom. And even holding a pencil, I was teaching students today and I was like, wait, you don't know how to hold a pencil? And I had to teach them how to hold a pencil. It's just, you learn a lot, like some of the schooling, they're there from 6 to 12 in Colombia. And so they're tired down to the food, their stomach hurts because they don't like the food. So I had to learn Like I have like Ritz crackers and getting popcorn in my classroom because they don't like the school lunch. So I had to get an Amazon wish list going because they just don't like the food. And then you have to get clothes, just everything. You just learn so much about them. And but it's also so rewarding the minute you learn so much about them and you care about them, they will work for you and they will learn from you, and it's just the most rewarding bonding experience because they are just so awesome. They have so much to offer, and you learn how brave they are and just like their journey, and you just learn their story and what made them come here, and you talk to their parents and you just learn like this whole story. And so the strong program just really helps you understand them, so then when you go back to the teachers and you help the teachers understand, look, you will see changes soon, but you have to understand where they're coming from, and then it helps the teachers like understand that. And then teaching them English, the kids really, really want to learn English. And so that has been really rewarding as well, and really fun. And then I also create newsletters for the parents just to like, hey, while we're here, let's be a tourist in our city. So on Fridays, I give them something to do free. I find something free on every Friday. I give them something for them to do on the weekend for free, like go check out the Bean, or like in the summer it was the movies in the park, whatever I find free that they can do. And then I also connect them with parents that have given me permission to that have already done these fun things. Like there was a parent that was so resourceful, and she would find passes in the library to go do passes in the museum, and so she has been a wonderful resource for parents. And so I've also connected parents with other parents so that they can have friends, because the parents needs friends as well. And so I've connected parents with other parents. And so I think we have to just remember that they also need a community with themselves, and they are shy. And so I also lead parent meetings with my roles in ELPT. And so it's really important helping them get to those BOC meetings and those POC meetings. And they are shy in coming, but once they come, they really build that community. And so that's like a big deal there. And next slide. Yeah. Oh, and so yeah, just to so yeah, basically, I mean, Ms. Mendoza kind of already said that, but just yeah, really understanding that their journey is different. Their trauma is not always visible. So a lot of times the kids might go to say they need to go to the bathroom, but they're really going to the bathroom to cry. So we really need to pay attention to them, and just really making sure we know the difference between empathy and sympathy. And yeah. I'm going to give it back to you, Alex.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jennifer and Cecilia, for sharing just the amazing work happening at Brighton Park to be so responsive to the needs, not just academically, but also socio-emotionally, and connecting to families. And also just appreciate the point I saw on your slide of thinking about secondhand trauma that teachers might be experiencing and how to consider professional development for that. That's really, really important. So thank you so much. So I'm going to pass it over to North Grand High School. North Grand High School is a CPS neighborhood high school on the northwest side of Chicago. North Grand is part of both the Network for College Success and Chi Rise, and they are doing some really innovative and exciting work around supporting new arrivals, but particularly from the lens of post-secondary planning. And so I'm really excited to welcome Alexis McCullum, school counselor at North Grand, and Cynthia Sanchez, bilingual teacher and program manager at North Grand. So take it away.
Hello, thank you so much for welcoming us into your space. I am Cynthia Sanchez. I'm also the ELPT, so the English language program teacher. It's just the bilingual coordinator role that CPS gives us. If we could go to the next slide, please. We're both from North Grand. And just to give us a little bit of background of like, where is North Grand? North Grand is just west of Humboldt Park. So we are a neighborhood school that serves Hermosa and Humboldt Park neighborhood students. We have just a little over 1,000 students with like a little over 80% students identify as Latinx, and then about 18% African American. Currently in the English language program, we have about 400 students that are identified as English language learners. However, that doesn't mean that they're newcomers. All of them, currently we have 128 students that are identified as newcomers, which means that they have arrived to CPS in 4 years or less. This year alone, we've had received 38 newcomers, and we are expecting this number to increase as shelters are sending over. Today we received one. We're expecting a couple more tomorrow and next week, newcomers. So yes, we are working very closely to those students that are coming straight from the shelters and have just arrived a week ago from their home countries. Now, the way we support our newcomers here in North Grand, thankfully, we are one of the schools that only have to deal with one language, which is like the native Spanish language. Many schools throughout the city of Chicago don't have that privilege, but we do, which makes it easier to support our newcomers. Our staff, at least our enrollment staff, they're primarily bilingual Spanish and English speakers. So we make sure that a bilingual staff member is the one that's greeting and enrolling our newcomers. Once they have been enrolled, then on day one, as soon as enrollment is completed, they get to meet with me, the bilingual coordinator. And this is my chance and my opportunity to get to know the student a little more and learn more about their journey. And oftentimes our conversations look like, so how are you feeling today? Do you need anything? Most of our students come with absolutely no school supplies. So we provide them with backpacks, notebooks, folders, absolutely everything just to set them for the day and for them to feel confident. Then we go ahead and discuss like, okay, so when was the last time you went to school? And that's where I get an idea of the student had interrupted schooling or not. And that's really important because it does factor into like, okay, so how would that impact their academic and what information can I share with teachers about the student that just arrived? We do a traditional, let's go over your schedule. This is how a typical school day in the US looks. I'm so sorry about that. This is how a typical school day in the US or specifically here at North Grand looks like. I take like time to just answer any questions they have. We do a tour, and then I walk them to like their first class of the day, whether that's second period, third period, and whoever is in that class, I tend to just pop in, identify another newcomer, and kind of just set them up with a buddy system for the day. And so that's the way that I'm just make sure the student doesn't feel like they are by themselves on day one. And so kind of passing on the torch. We're like, hey, do you remember when it was your first day? Now it's her first or his first day. I need you to help me out. And remember, I'm always going to be in the hallway, so non-going support. If you need me to walk you to your next class, or if you just have any questions or if there's anything troublesome. As far as our like ongoing supports and being present in the hallways for the students to build those relationships, I also make sure that all of them are provided with one-on-one Chromebooks for translation needs. We also have a EL tutoring or a EL center where twice a week they get to come and check in with me and 4 other bilingual staff teachers, 1 per content, core content, where they could come in for help and support on academics or SEL, or if they just have any general questions, whether that's an issue they're having in class with another peer, or they're not understanding, they need to study, whatever it is that they need, they come to the EL center. Another thing that we're also doing that's new this year to support this huge increase of newcomers is we had just created a multilingual committee, and this committee is being ran by actually some EL teachers and a social worker that works really closely with our newcomers to address their trauma. And also like our SICAs and office staff. And the purpose of this multilingual committee is so that not all like the burden or the work falls back on the bilingual coordinator, which is me, but also like we have that shared leadership among everybody, and everybody's aware like, okay, this is how we support our newcomers. And the point or like our majority goal of ensuring that this happens is just to build that belonging and trust within our at North Grand community, because ultimately, since day one, we're already thinking about their post-secondary decisions. So we need to make sure that they have those relationships built first.
Yes. This is just a picture of some of our students in our senior new arrival cohort that I will get into a little bit. Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. So like she stated, in order for us to even think of talking post-secondary with students, one, we need to make sure that they trust us and they feel safe in their environment. And then from day one, we already was like, hey, like we started checking in on like what their actual post-secondary plan is once they're feeling a little bit more acclimated. Supporting new arrivals along their post-secondary journey looks a little bit different across grade levels. North Grand is fortunate enough to have three seminar classes across 3 grade levels. So we have 9th, 11th, and 12th. And in each of these seminar classes with our new arrival students, we do make sure that they are with bilingual teachers, just so they can feel comfortable asking questions in their native language if they don't understand something and such. We also expose our students to various field trips, and we are very intentional on when we do these exposure field trips. We make sure that we have staff available that also is bilingual on each of these trips. We also reach out ahead of time. For instance, if we're going to a college, we reach out and we ask them for accommodations, making sure that they have Spanish speakers as well, or if they can bring in resources that they have on campus that support new arrival students. Also, during their seminar classes, they are introduced to various organizations and community partners. Like, for instance, we had Cause come in and speak to our students at one point. A new initiative that North Grand is doing this year is we are doing a new arrival senior cohort for the very first time because we saw the needs of our students. New arrivals in our seminar setting, they have different needs to be addressed. We can't just treat them like any general student. Their opportunities may look a little different. Their understanding is going to be a little bit different. So we decided to come together as a team and see what we can put together for these students. And as a result, we were able to come up with 3 leads, a counselor, a social worker, and our bilingual coordinator, and then me in the background to help plan, to really come to create a safe space for our students where they feel comfortable enough to kind of be a little bit vulnerable and talk about their concerns and their desires when it comes to post-secondary, but also to feel supported. So the goal of our cohort was really to leave students feeling confident in their post-secondary plan and for them to have that ability to self-advocate. We also wanted to leave them with a rich resource bank that supports their ability to persist in whatever pathway that they may choose. Our senior cohort was completely optional. We actually put it out for about 35-ish students, but those that opted in to be in our senior cohort was a total of 26. And they like to go by the name of Los Sanchitos. So during these cohorts, we do quarterly whole group meetings. So each of them at least have 4 contacts whole group throughout the entire school year where they come together and we discuss various topics. Our most recent one was we did a scholarship workshop, but they also have a chance to do one-on-one bi-weekly check-ins. So the way it works is we had each mentor take a group of students within that cohort as a caseload, and those students directly report to that mentor on a bi-weekly basis, so they have an additional person in the additional post-secondary champion in the school setting to really make sure that they are on track towards their goals, to also help them focus on any maybe graduation requirements or anything at all that they really need that's post-secondary focused. In addition, we were fortunate enough to be able to take 2 field trips this year. We took our group to the National Hispanic College Fair and the Undocumented Champions Ally Summit. For those that don't know, if you ask about bus, because everyone can't afford a bus, most of the time there's like a good 50-50 chance that they will provide it for you. And then in addition, we do connect our students with outside guests, such as we had OSCAPA come in to host the CPS Dream Fund application. Some other supports that we do for our new arrival students and families is we do quarterly family workshops in both English and Spanish. These workshops can really vary in topic. Our first workshop was actually like a college 101, just like a basics, like what is like the differences in college, a 2-year, 4-year, just going over common terms. Another workshop that we're going to be doing is like how to finance it and really trying to connect our students with various resources, because we know new arrival students don't necessarily qualify for financial aid. Well, some of them. So it's really important that we are not just focusing on like the FAFSA or the RISE application. We need to actually reach out and find different scholarships for our students. I think that is, yep. We can go back one more. So some challenges that we do face when it comes to supporting new arrivals with their post-secondary plan is, I forgot to mention, so our senior cohort, all of our 26 students want to go to college. And we want that for them as well. But then there are major challenges for those students, such as the language barrier. A lot of our students, they're still learning English. They're still learning how to read English. So going into higher education, that is a basic need in order to be successful and persist in college. That is a major challenge that we're facing. Another challenge that we're facing is lack of available programs for new arrivals. Similar with the language barrier, like it's more of some of our students wanting to learn more English in order to be able to go into these programs. Right now, we're struggling to find some. And so if you guys have any recommendations, we'll definitely take those. And along with financial support, that's always going to be a struggle at the moment, at least. So we keep on looking for more scholarships and more ways to support our students. So then this is where we come to a call to action as far as the for the district, state, city, and statewide. We need our students' basic needs met before we can even think about post-secondary. A lot of our students are coming in, like we had an instance where students don't even have coats and it was winter outside, and we learned this through actually hosting one of our cohorts, that a student kept coming in and not without a jacket. So like, how can they even focus on what they want to do after high school if they don't have those basic needs met? So more resources in that area. We also are asking for CPS funds not be limited to the 20th day of enrollment. We have new arrivals still enrolling today, actually. So just counting new arrivals up to the 20th day is not accurate account for the number of students that we actually do take in. It would be very helpful to have newcomer centers at every school, at least those with high enrollment, or at least a designated representative to provide support and resources. Our bilingual coordinator, our ELPTs, are already stretched thin serving all our English language learners. So it's really hard for that one person to take on this job alone. In addition, we are looking for more opportunities in regards to post-secondary programs, such as maybe transition programs to help students build those necessary skills to perform in either the workforce or higher education. I think that's about it for me right now. I hopefully didn't go over too much time.
No, I started late. It was on me. Okay. Thank you so much, Alexis and Cynthia, for sharing just the differentiated supports you're offering at the post-secondary level. It just seems really thoughtful and data-driven, and just really connected to supporting the humanity of your students and what they need. And I just really appreciate some of those calls to action as well, of what the city, the district, and the state could be doing better. You sort of alluded to this a little bit, Alexis, around ELPT teachers being sort of strapped. And one of the questions that came up is just maybe specifically for Cynthia and Jennifer, but for anyone as well, like what resources are available to bilingual teachers, both just on how best promising practices to support students, and are there other CBOs, community-based organizations, nonprofits that folks know of that have been particularly helpful for supporting students? So first part of that question to Jennifer and Cynthia around EL resources specifically and bilingual support teachers. And then for everyone, what CBOs and nonprofits do you know of that have been particularly helpful in your work?
So I have been using, so I've been listening to a podcast, Equipping ELLs, and I pay it on my own. I use her, so I just use it on my own, but I like it. So I use Equipping ELLs, and then, yeah, just I pretty much pay for her, and I listen to her podcast, and I use her Instagram, and then I like a walk in the chalk. Her Instagram, I've learned a lot from her. And I just find other teachers that have podcasts that teach ELLs, and I listen to them, and pretty much that's what I do. I find teachers that teach, and I watch them on Instagram and watch how they do their lessons, and then I find what they do, and then go on Amazon wish list and then have people buy me those things, and that's what I do.
We're also, as ELPTs, required to provide professional development at the school-wide level. So we do ELD modules or English language development modules, which I found very helpful, along with like walkthroughs, just kind of to get a sense of where teachers are at and what further supports they need at the classroom level. Additionally, CPS does do like a 50% reimbursement if they are interested in getting their ESL bilingual endorsement. Honestly, I feel like we're at a point where we should get 100% reimbursement, or at least create a cohort in the school where we can start having those courses qualify for endorsements. But for now, I know the 50% CPS cohort does exist for teachers as immediate resource.
Thank you for those resources. So it sounds like there's not enough, but there's some things that we can find. Any other thoughts on community-based organizations or nonprofits that are helpful in Chicago that you'd recommend people check out?
We have definitely been part of the Brighton Park Neighborhood Council, and I know we have been part of the Brighton Park Neighborhood Council, and they have definitely provided us with a lot of funding and supports to the sustainable community schools. I know that's up for CTU right now, in part of the new negotiation with the contracts, but that has been a tremendous help with the supports that we can provide to our students.
Awesome. And I know the Latino Policy Forum mentioned a few organizations in their deck, and I'm happy to share that out in our follow-up as well. One quick closing question that I want to ask before we transition to the post discussion space is just, what's giving you hope in this work right now? There's a lot that there's not enough resources. There's so much new. There's a lot of trauma that I heard about. But is anything giving you hope for change in this work right now? And that's for anyone.
I think the Strong program I've seen so much. Well, I think first of all, the sustainable community program that we have, all the resources we have, the help that we have the therapists at our school. We have so many resources in place to help our students is incredible. We have the Strong program that allows our students to express their feelings. There's so much support staff where the students have a safe place to go. Every classroom has a calm corner. my principals provided so many opportunities for students to have a place where they know there's somebody they can go to at the school and it's just established, and that has just been well known. And so, I mean, even in the cafeteria. And so that is just been incredible. So I think that's given a lot of hope.
I think for me, just all of you, like all of the organizations that have been working on the ground to support our new neighbors has just been really inspiring to me, who doesn't always get to work on the ground in my capacity. So it's just really great to see all the work and all the impact that you all are having.
Beautiful. And I wish we had more time, but I am going to pause it there and extend just so much gratitude to everyone on this call, Latino Policy Forum, the educators at Brighton Park and North Grand High School, for sharing your wisdom, perspective, and brilliance, and for doing this work every single day. It's not easy. It's hard work. It's brain work. And we just love and appreciate the work that you all are doing. Really hope that everyone sticks around for our post discussion. Jessica has just put the link in the chat. So go ahead and click over there and we will see you on the other side to keep discussing. But if you need to leave, we hope you have a great day and look forward to sending out a follow-up email with resources and the recording for this session. See you in the post discussion, or have a great day.